All right. It's Saturday, November 12th, 2010. I am walking from the East Village to the West Village to work. I'm 24 years old, and in my left hand, I'm holding a coconut water, and in my right hand, I'm holding a recently purchased pregnancy test. At the time I was captaining a mixed team, Man Pro, which I had helped start in 2010. We had the brilliant idea of taking two kind of mediocre mixed teams and making one all-star team, which was like brand new idea in 2010. I was dating my co-captain, Joe, and we were doing that thing where we were like kind of hooking up and hanging out all the time, but like not wanting to use labels, so we didn't really have to be nice to each other. That's been a pattern for me. But BCAP in 2010 was pretty similar to BCAP 2017. I really pride myself in having my shit together. I have never lost a credit card. I've never missed a flight. I've never skipped a class in college. My parents told me that I actually potty trained myself. Because my mom one day was just like, oh, like real kids wear underwear, not diapers. And I was like, oh, I'll just wear underwear. Like, not shit in my pants, great. So like, since age 2, I've literally had my shit together. So yeah, generally, I just really like being in control of my situation and planning ahead and like getting all my things done on time. I grew up in a family, and that extended to birth control. I grew up in a family where my mom basically fed me condoms. She had a sister who had a kid when she was 17, so she was like super paranoid that her kid was gonna have a kid and she would have to deal with it. So the message was like, if you get pregnant, like it's okay, you can deal with it, but like please just like use condoms. And they were everywhere in the house. Like I told my friends I had a condom tree at my house and I just give them out to everyone. But then, so that October, a condom had broken, and that was super scary, but like I knew that there were other options, so I went to the Plan B option, which was actually called Plan B, and went to the pharmacy, got it basically 12 hours after, and I remember the packaging had said like take one pill within 72 hours of birth control failure, and I had done that, so I pretty much felt like things were going to be under control. But then a few weeks later, like I missed a period, which had never happened to me before, and that was also a little worrisome, but I like didn't feel like it was possible because like both of those two methods before had said like 98% effective, 95% effective. So I was like pretty sure like I did everything right, like everything else in my life, so I should like everything else in my life now. There's a lot of things that I felt like were gonna be okay if I just like did it right. And so at this moment I'm walking and I just gone to the store to get a pregnancy test to like double check. And I remember the woman who sold me the test was like, good luck, like, as I got it, which was really weird because like usually Dwayne Reed people like don't say much to you. So that was a little bit scary, like as if it had happened to her too. So I approached work. At the time I was working as an assistant editor on a David Blaine show. He's a magician, if you don't know. And I was an assistant editor, so I basically got to watch everything that's ever been shot of David Blaine, and then cut it all down and give sort of a condensed version to my editors. And one of the things I was going to be working on that day was looking at all the footage of this one stunt he did called Above the Below. And that was a stunt where he basically starved himself for 44 days in a glass box that was like hanging next to the London Bridge. And it basically forced the public to like stare at someone starving themselves and suffering and being vulnerable. and ask themselves, like, how does that make you feel? And like, how are you suffering? And like, who knows that, basically? And so I finally arrived at work, got in the elevator, really had to pee because of the coconut water. And I like start like going up and just thinking to myself, like, when I come down this elevator later, like, I'm gonna know if I'm pregnant or not, which was like a super weird feeling. So I like beelined it to the bathroom, like unwrapped the test, peed on the test, as one does. And slowly but surely, the plus sign emerged. I just kind of stared at it for a little while, thinking like maybe this is a magic trick, like this can't be real. I'd been watching hours and hours of David Blaine magic for the last like 3 months, so I was kind of imagining like him to like jump in and be like, gotcha, like surprise. But that didn't happen, and I was still really skeptical, so I like opened the next one because like pregnancy tests come in twos for this reason. People are really skeptical. I did it again, and this was the same result. So I just kind of started like pacing back and forth in the bathroom. Luckily it was Saturday, nobody was gonna come in. And at that moment I kind of felt like David Blaine in his glass box, like I really didn't want to leave because then it would be real. So I like texted Joe and I was like, I'm pregnant. And then I kind of paced around and realized like nothing was really gonna change if I just kept standing here in this like bathroom glass box. So before I left, I decided I would get an abortion. That was kind of like my plan C, I guess. So then I left and just went to work because I didn't know what else to do. Like poured myself some cereal, and just started watching footage of David Blaine in this box and like all these people below him reacting to him being there. That's why it's called Above the Below, is because the below is really where the interesting stuff happens. It's like, how do people react to something super painful and strange that you haven't seen before? And like people were really angry, some of them were really confused, some people were really supportive and like loving, some people did art, some people danced. It was like a whole like array of reactions that I was looking at. And that started like making me think of how, if I was gonna tell anyone about this thing that was gonna happen to me, and that like, you know, for most things, like when I broke my hand, like everyone knew to say like, how's it going? Like you see the cast, you know, and like your Frisbee community is like, oh, like how's your injury status? Like, can you play again? Like it's sort of like, there's a lot of like normal things to say, but with abortion, like there's not a script for how you react. Like you're not gonna just send flowers and be like, get well soon. Like, cause not many people know what it really is like. So the first person that day, like as I was working, I got a text from Joe and he was like, I'm an abortion expert now. I like did all the research. You basically just have to go to Planned Parenthood and make an appointment, get a pill. You can like do it at your house. It's not really a huge deal. And I hadn't really known any of that before, so that was helpful. But the first person I told was my mother, and I basically, the next day, just called her and said like, hey, Mom, like in that voice. And she was like, you're pregnant. So I was like, yeah. But she was really supportive. She actually had like a silly story about using the same New York City Planned Parenthood in the 80s, like when they had like planned to have my sister, but she was really cheap and like knew it was free to get a test at Planned Parenthood, so they like went there to get the pregnancy test instead of like buying one. And like she got the call from Planned Parenthood and they're like, we're so sorry, like you're pregnant. And she was like, thank you. Awesome. So yeah, like she was a very supportive mother, and like I'm so lucky that I live in a family like that. I then called my best friend who lives in DC, and her immediate reaction was just like, I'm gonna come, I'm gonna be there. And I was like, you really don't have to. Like I had no expectations of that. And she was like, no, I'm coming. Like, when's your appointment? And I was like, 4 weeks. She's like, I'll be there for the appointment. I'll be there that whole weekend. Like, clear my schedule. So finally that day came 4 weeks later, because like Planned Parenthood's really busy in New York, so it's really hard to get an appointment. So yeah, basically it consisted of taking a nausea pill and then a $500 abortion pill. So that's what I did. That morning I got a text from Joe, and he was just like, I'll be on the other side of the river if you need me. But it wasn't very helpful. And then my friend was there the whole day. Like, the moment I stood up after taking the pills and like wanted to puke, because that's what happens, but you like can't puke because then you have to like buy a whole other $500 pill and like do a whole thing. It's not something you want to do twice. So like started walking forward and like basically fell because it was so hard to walk, and my friend literally caught me. So that was really awesome. And like, yeah, it was basically the most painful thing that's ever happened to me for like 48 hours, much more painful than breaking my hand for sure. But I didn't tell anyone because I was afraid of, I guess, their reactions or assumptions of like who I am or like what I've done, or I don't know, I was just like super afraid of that. But like since then, I've realized how important my friend was for being there, and I've learned, she basically taught me a lot about friendship in that moment, because before that, I don't think I'd ever realized that if something's wrong with someone, they need support, you should just go. So then that Monday, like I returned to work because I'm freelance. If you don't go to work, you don't get paid, and I really needed the money, so I went to work right after that. And we were watching the fine cut of this episode of David Blaine and the Above the Below and of all his stunts. And at the very end of the show, they had included a TED Talk where David Blaine like talks about his magic and how much he loves it and like why he does it and how he's sort of addicted to pain. And at the very end, he starts crying and kind of like breaks down unexpectedly. And everyone in the room, like the producers, the editors, were debating for like a very long time, like, should we keep this in? Like, David Blaine looks super like corny maybe, or like vulnerable, or like, I don't know, like, is this weird to take away from his like heroic look he has in all these other stunts? And finally they just turned to me because I hadn't said anything. They were like, what do you think? Like, should we leave this section in? And I was like, yeah, definitely. Like, it shows David Blaine in a vulnerable place that he has no control over. While in these other stunts, he's controlled everything. And it really shows your true self and how much you care about your work. And I realized like being vulnerable is very scary. And, you know, I, as someone who wants to control a lot of my life, have realized like I didn't choose my glass box, but I can choose to exit it. And that's what I'm doing right now.